welcome to Live Interactive English. Hi everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Sam.
And today, since we're getting back into school, we thought it would be a good idea to talk about stationery for high school.
Okay.
Is stationery for high school different from stationery for junior high school? Or elementary school?
Well, I would think in elementary school, what I remember about my stationery in elementary school is I had lots of pictures on my folders and my pencils. And then in high school, it was just like red, green, blue, you know.
And I guess
basic.
you'd have like fun things for elementary school, like colored pencils to do drawing, whereas for high school, you might have math equipment, you know, more rulers and stuff for doing geometry and fancy math. But anyways, this word stationery is a very useful word. It basically just means pens, pencils, erasers, the paper that you use to write things on, things you use in school, things you use in an office, things you use when you're writing, studying, that kind of stuff.
Yes, and it's also one of my favorite stores to visit in Taiwan. There are many, many stationery stores here. And besides all of the, you know, pens and markers and all that stuff, which I also love, all the school stuff, they also have so much like crafting stuff and fun stickers and just all this kind of stuff that we don't, I mean, you'll see that at like a craft store in America, but I don't know, there's just something fun about the stationery stores. I think they're really...
And almost every school in Taiwan has a stationery store across the street or down the road. And the kids also, sometimes they have toys in there too. So kids can go there and along with buying their pens and pencils, they can buy fun toys as well. So let's check out some of the stationery that would be pretty typical for your average high school student. Jerome and Carmen are sitting in the study room.
Hey Carmen, I noticed that your notes are all colorful. What's your system?
Yeah, I use a blue pen for regular notes, a red pen for key facts, and highlighters for information that I have struggled to remember in the past.
Interesting. How does that help?
Well, I study the blue parts 2 weeks before an exam and the highlighted parts a week before it. Then I focus on the red parts just before the exam.
That's clever. I usually just cram for exams a few days before.
Thanks. It helps me remember better. Do you want to try it?
Definitely. Thanks for sharing your secret.
No problem.
All right, so today we have a dialogue and it is all about stationery for high school. And so the beginning part of this, we are going to look at discussing note-taking. So this is something some people are very particular about how they take their notes and how they write them. And so that's what they're going to be talking about. And it says, Jerome and Carmen are sitting in the study room.
All right, so they're at school somewhere, kind of like the library, but the study room will be a place where you are allowed to talk a little bit, but it gives you a private place to work with your friends or as a group to study and prepare for your tests. And as they're chatting, Jerome says, "Hey, Carmen, I noticed that your notes are all colorful." So he notices Carmen has some paper, a book in front of her where she's writing her notes, writing important information from her classes. And he also notices that it's not just a white page with blue or black pen writing. There's lots of colors there too, not just to make it pretty, but to keep it organized. And that's what he's interested about as he says, "What's your system? What's your way of organizing your notes? It looks colorful and very helpful and useful."
Okay, and we have this word colorful, which is an adjective, and it just means full of color. So it's not something that is just black and white, very one color or monotone, this kind of idea. It is full of color, lots of different colors, and usually this is applied to things that are very bright too, because it's got lots of really bright colors, so very colorful. For example, my mom's garden is full of colorful flowers. So it's not just all white flowers or all red flowers. It's got lots of different colors and it's very pretty. And so Carmen is answering to explain her system, and she says, yeah, I use a blue pen for regular notes, a red pen for key facts, and highlighters for information that I have struggled to remember in the past. Wow, she has a very detailed system for her notes.
Absolutely. It's a good way to keep track of all the important information she learns in the class, information that will probably be required for the test. Because information is just facts. It's data. It's stuff that it's useful or important or necessary to know. If I ask you for your personal information about you as a person, that would be your name, your age, your birth date, maybe your address, things like that. When we read books, especially books that are not storybooks, right? Books about real things, history books or newspapers or things like that. We're reading them to get information, right? The news that you learn, that you read every day, or you watch on TV, or you listen to from the internet or something, that's information about what's going on in the world. Facts, who, what, where, when, why, that kind of stuff, all right? So information comes in all shapes and sizes. Some of it is really important, some of it is not so important, but it's basically facts, data, or stuff that you need to know. This history book has lots of information about the Second World War. So it's not just pictures and paintings of the war, it will be writing about the war with, as I said, facts, data, stuff like that. All right, back to the dialogue. So Jerome is listening to Carmen explain her system. Sounds like a pretty good system. And he's, I guess, never really thought of organizing his notes in that way. So he says, interesting, which is the kind of thing you say when you learn new and useful information. Interesting. I didn't know that. I'm glad I do now. And then he kind of asks, you do it this way, but does it really help you? How does that help, right? I know what you're doing, you're organizing things, but apart from making it colorful, does it actually help you in class?
Yes, and so Carmen responds, well, I studied the blue parts 2 weeks before an exam and the highlighted parts a week before it. Then I focus on the red parts just before the exam. Cool. So she doesn't just color code the information, she then uses it to say, I need to spend this much time, or how close to the test do I need to review this information?
Yeah, so it organizes the notes on the page, and that helps to organize her to get ready for an exam. That's clever, says Jerome, because it's quite clever, it's quite intelligent, it's quite a smart way to keep your notes and your studying organized. Jerome, he's not quite so organized. He's a bit more normal, I guess. He says, I usually just cram for exams a few days before. And unfortunately, yes, many people do this. They cram for the exam. When you cram, you're studying very intensely just a day or even the night before the exam. To cram is like to shove, so it's like you're shoving the information into your brain. You might remember it for the exam, but you probably won't remember it or really understand and know it for much longer. So cramming might help you pass, but it's not the best way to really learn things.
Yes, and so Carmen says, thanks, meaning thanks for saying like, oh yeah, that's interesting and all this kind of stuff.
Clever, yeah.
Yes, it helps me remember better. Do you want to try it?
All right, is it something that Jerome might try to do? Definitely, he says, which is a strong yes, very much so, I will try this. If you say definitely, it means you will. Thanks for sharing your secret. Thanks for passing on your little tips here and tricks. He will probably find them very useful.
Yes, and Carmen says, no problem, meaning, yeah, of course, no worries, glad to share.
Kind of makes me want to go back to school and take some classes so I can organize my notes, at least for one day. All right, we're going to take a break and then we'll be back with more.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。这次的对话是关于提升学习效率的文具。那么 Stationery 这个字就是指文具，它是不可数名词。在第一段对话里面，我们看到 Jerome 和 Carmen 一起坐在自修室里面。Jerome 注意到 Carmen 的笔记有各种颜色，看起来很有组织条理，想要了解一下他做笔记的方法。补充一下 ，Mike 老师刚刚用到 organized 这个形容词 ，O-R-G-A-N-I-Z-E-D，organized 可以形容井然有序的、有组织的、有条理的。好，那对话里的 Carmen 就说，他用蓝笔来做一般笔记，用红笔记下关键的事实，用荧光笔标记那些他过去记不太起来的资讯。而到了考前2周，他会研读蓝色部分；考前1周研读荧光笔的部分。那快要考试之前，则专注在红色部分。Jerome 听了觉得这个方法很聪明，他自己都是在考前几天临时抱佛脚，所以呢会想试试看 Carmen 的方法。我们来看单字。Colorful 它是形容五颜六色的、缤纷的。那么 Sam 老师这时候有用到 monotone 这个字 ，M-O-N-O-T-O-N-E。monotone 它是指单音调，那也可以用来指单调乏味。下一个单字 information 它是指资讯、消息，是不可数名词。那补充单字 cram 这个动词它表示可能为了应考临时去死记硬背，就乱塞资讯这样子。所以这时候 Mike 老师用到 shove 这个动词 S-H-O-V-E shove 就表示乱塞。好，这句话课文中。
Carmen approaches Jerome after school.
Hey, Jerome, do you want to go to the stationery store with me? We are starting that math class next week.
Sure. What do we need?
I'm thinking extra pencils and a good calculator.
Sounds good. Do we need anything else?
Maybe some erasers and a ruler. Oh, and a pair of compasses too.
Great idea. What's that thing we use for measuring angles called?
A protractor?
Yes. Let's get a couple of those as well.
Good call. We'll need one of those when we are studying shapes.
All right, we are back, and what are we doing now? Well, we're still with Carmen and Jerome. Maybe this is because Jerome wants to be more organized and have his notes look as beautiful as Carmen's do. So we are buying new stationery. Jerome's going to go out and buy a bunch of colorful pens and pencils to make his notes look spectacular. It says Carmen approaches Jerome after school. So it's after their last class. Everyone's going home, and Carmen basically walks up or walks over to speak to Jerome.
Yes, we use this verb approach, and approach just means to walk towards something. So you are approaching an object or a person or whatever it is that you are trying to get to. So you're walking towards something. For example, the car slowed down as it approached the school. So it might be getting ready to stop and let somebody out, or maybe the school zone is you have to drive slower. So as you get closer to the school, as you go towards the school, slow down. So we have the beginning of our dialogue now is just Carmen going, hey, Jerome, do you want to go to the stationery store with me? We are starting that math class next week.
Ooh, okay. So they might need some special equipment for a math class, something more than just pens, pencils, and erasers. Jerome says, sure, yes, I would. I would like to go to the stationery store. And then he asks, what do we need, right? Because he's thinking we probably need things that are a little unusual compared to some of the things we need for other classes. So what do we need for the math class?
Yes, and so Carmen says, I'm thinking extra pencils and a good calculator. That's a good idea. I know most people, well, not just most, probably everybody's phone is now a calculator, but teachers don't really want you to have your phones out, so you'd better have a regular old calculator that can't play games, so that you don't get in trouble.
That's very true. And some types of math, it requires a special calculator, I think a scientific calculator to do sine and cosine and tangent and things like that. So this is definitely something that will help them in math class. Jerome says, sounds good. When you think an idea or a proposal or a suggestion is good, you say, sounds good. I like the sound of that. It's a good idea. Do we need anything else? So we got some pencils. We'll get that fancy calculator maybe. Anything else?
Well, Carmen says maybe some erasers and a ruler.
Good idea.
Erasers so that you can fix your mistakes, and a ruler so you can draw those super straight triangle lines and things like that. Oh, and a pair of compasses too. Ooh. Oh, I haven't thought about a compass in a really long time.
Yep.
But those are the not even a machine, just a little metal tool that you would stick a pencil in, and has a pointy side on one side, and you can make a circle.
That's right. You can use the ruler to make your squares and your triangles, but unless you're a really good artist, drawing a perfect circle freehand, just using your hand and eye, is tricky. But with a compass, you can make a perfect circle every time. Useful in the math we call geometry, right? The math of shapes and angles and all that kind of stuff. Great idea, says Jerome. Yeah, compasses is a great idea. Also, don't get confused with that thing that shows you north. We also call that a compass.
Yes.
Right? So that's something you would use when you're looking at a map or walking around in the forest. The compass shows north, south, east, west. This is a pair of compasses because there's two parts to it, and this is for making circles. So don't buy the wrong kind of compass. Great idea, says Jerome. What's that thing we use for measuring angles called? Yeah, I was thinking about this. To measure something is basically to use a system to find out how big something is, how small it is, how much it weighs, how fast it's going. You're using some kind of scientific method to basically find out data or numbers, generally using some system, right? So when we measure someone's height or the distance, we might use meters or kilometers. When we measure the weight of something, we would use kilograms or pounds. You could do it with your hands or with your eye, but that was just kind of a good guess. If you measure it, you'll use a ruler or you'll use a scale or something like that to get the precise information, the precise numbers of whatever it is you're trying to measure. They measured the length of the table to see if it would fit in their house, probably using a measuring tape and centimeters or meters or something. So what is that thing that you use in math class to measure angles, right? 90 degrees, 45 degrees?
Yes, and Carmen responds, a protractor.
A protractor.
She's not totally sure, is that what you're asking about? That's why we have the question mark there, even though she's giving an answer, but she's just double checking, was that the answer you're looking for? A protractor? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that is what Jerome is talking about. So he says, yes, let's get a couple of those as well. You guys all know this. It looks like a half circle, flat on the bottom, round on the top, 90 degrees, and it has numbers, and you can measure, the angle in a triangle, for example.
Yes, and then Carmen says, good call. We'll need one of those when we are studying shapes. So she hadn't remembered it, but then she's like, yes, we will need that.
Good call, good suggestion. All right, so off they go to spend a bit of money and get themselves fully ready for geometry class. Thanks for joining us, guys. All the best at school and at the stationery store. Maybe we'll see you there. We'll be buying colorful stickers. Until then, take care and bye-bye.
在第二段对话里 ，Carmen 走向 Jerome 找他一起去文具店，因为下周要开始上数学课，要先准备一些东西。Jerome 问说要买什么，那么 Carmen 说他想要多买几支铅笔，还有一台好的计算机，也许再买一些橡皮擦，还有一把尺，然后还有一副圆规。Jerome 这时候想到，也可以买几个量角器啊。好，我们先来看单字 approach。approach 是动词，表示接近、走近或者是靠近。measure 这个动词则表示测量、量或者是衡量。Michael 老师刚刚则有提到 geometry 这个字表示几何学。老师也提醒我们 compass 这个字它有不同的意思哦，它可以指罗盘、指南针，不过在对话里面它指的是圆规。当这个意思解释时，常用复数型。好，这边两个重点，我们进入文法时间。我们来看第一个重点是 a pair of 加名词，它是指一双一对的什么什么。那么 pair 指的是成对的东西，所以呢后 方的名词必须是成双的物品，可能像 socks 袜子、shorts 短裤、glasses 眼镜等等。我们课文里面则用到 a pair of compasses 来指一副圆规。好，举例来说 I bought a pair of scissors yesterday. 我昨天买了一把剪刀。那第二个重点是 a couple of 则表示两三个，后面可以接复数可数名词，像 I watched a couple of movies last week. 我上个礼拜看了2、3部电影。好，那么以上今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Jerome and Carmen are sitting in the study room.
Hey Carmen, I noticed that your notes are all colorful. What's your system?
Yeah, I use a blue pen for regular notes, a red pen for key facts, and highlighters for information that I have struggled to remember in the past.
Interesting. How does that help?
Well, I study the blue parts 2 weeks before an exam and the highlighted parts a week before it. Then I focus on the red parts just before the exam.
That's clever. I usually just cram for exams a few days before.
Thanks. It helps me remember better. Do you want to try it?
Definitely. Thanks for sharing your secret.
No problem.
Carmen approaches Jerome after school.
Hey, Jerome. Do you want to go to the stationery store with me? We are starting that math class next week.
Sure. What do we need?
I'm thinking extra pencils and a good calculator.
Sounds good. Do we need anything else?
Maybe some erasers and a ruler. Oh, and a pair of compasses too.
Great idea. What's that thing we use for measuring angles called?
A protractor?
Yes. Let's get a couple of those as well.
Good call. We'll need one of those when we are studying shapes.
Here's how to play. The host will be holding 3 cards. Each card will have 2 sentences containing a secret vocabulary word or phrase that has been replaced by the word bear. The host will read the sentences out loud for the contestants to guess. Whoever guesses first gets a point. The person with the most points wins. And you can play along too.
Hello everyone, I'm Matt.
I'm Steven.
I'm Carolyn.
All right, are you guys ready to play?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Ready to win.
Yes.
We'll see about that. All right, let's begin. Your first one is a noun, one word. The cat doesn't like the round cleaning bear. My brother loves the cool bears from that sci-fi show.
Robot?
Yes.
Can you repeat this sentence?
So the cat doesn't like the round cleaning robot, and my brother loves the cool robots from that sci-fi show. All right, next one is a verb, one word. This relationship isn't bearing for me. How does this new machine bear?
Work.
Oh. Can you give it to Carolyn so we have
All
like
right, it's pretty much a tie. So you're gonna give it to Carolyn on this one. Stephen was louder, but Carolyn gets the point.
Can you repeat this sentence?
Yes, so that was this relationship isn't working for me. And how does this new machine work? Okay, last one is a 2-word phrase.
Okay.
Kids must be bear this tall to get on this ride. Ben is clumsy, but bear, he always does his best.
At least.
Yes, Carolyn, winning the tiebreaker.
Wow.
So it was kids must be at least this tall to get on this ride. Ben is clumsy, but at least he always does his best.
Oh, well, good job. Good, Ben. I'm happy for Ben. I'm happy for you for
Both
winning.
of you for doing your best.
Yes, at least I did my best.
At least you got second place.
Out of 2.